Welcome to Self-Funded. I'm your host, Chrissie Francona. 10 years ago, starting a business around yourself was something reserved for celebrities. Today, professionals everywhere are breaking away from the 9-to-5 and building businesses around their own experience and expertise. On this show, we'll explore what it really means to be self-funded, the movement of professionals carving their own path, creating cash-flowing businesses, and building lasting impact without waiting for permission. I'll share my own journey and talk with others who are rethinking what's possible when you take your career into your own hands. Let's dive in. Today's episode is inspired by The Wizard of Oz. A strange place to find inspiration, I know, but there's a quote that always resonated with me. Glinda tells Dorothy something along the lines of, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn how to use it for yourself." This quote came to mind this week as I've been having some end-of-year catch-up calls with friends or colleagues who are on their own self-funded journey. Some are figuring out a business model. Others are trying to put themselves out there for more social media marketing, while others are just looking ahead to 2026 and trying to make a career change. With all of these, and with my own experience, it's so easy to look elsewhere for inspiration, support, and the push to do the thing. But whatever you determine, you need to do it for yourself. So how does this relate to a self-funded business? As I've talked about before, a self-funded business is one that's based on your own experience or expertise. So to somewhat misquote Glinda, you already have the business inside your brain, what you know how to do better than most anyone else, or something that you've experienced that's unique enough that you can add value and broad enough that there's an audience that would follow you there. So while you're figuring out what that is, you also need to get comfortable putting it into action. So today I want to talk more about this and what it means to me. I'm going to cover a few areas. First, how do you find that power or that spark internally? Second, how do you learn to use it and leverage it into a business? And third, what are a couple things you can do in 2026 to put this into action? First, how do you find the spark? I see a lot of business stories around pivots that are so extreme you'd get whiplash. For most people, that's neither realistic nor is it practical to assume you can do that and be successful. So instead, you start with what you already have inside you. That's an experience that you have lived through and you have come out the other side of, or it's an expertise that you've developed over years and years of professional experience. So that sounds great, but how do you figure that out? There are a couple ways I suggest doing this. First, I love an exercise that I did with a coach a few years ago named Chanel DeCoon. She works with clients to build what's called a life plan, and it's focused on turning points in your life. I'll list her info in the show notes because I think she's amazing and I would highly recommend working with her. But basically, you start with a brain dump of your most important or meaningful experiences, listing them out chronologically. Then you go through and group them, and you figure out what are the most critical and what really became your life's turning points. So I'm not suggesting doing the exact same for figuring out what the experience or expertise you could build a business around is, but more so the general activity of doing a brain dump and then sifting through and finding the themes is really helpful. Another way to do this is to solicit feedback. I had another coach I worked with once, yes, I've worked with several coaches, who had me ask people in my life what shows up when I enter a room. It was a fun exercise to see what people thought of me. And there are variants on this question. You can say what's said about you when you're not in a room, why would someone specifically call you, etc. Basically, it's a way to crowdsource your spark in a way that's a little bit more creative than just saying, hey, what am I good at? The third way I'd suggest doing this is mining all of your reviews and feedback and really figuring out what the common themes are. Some people suggest keeping a feedback or accomplishments file over time. I love this idea, but it really only works if you've been doing it for a while. So if you haven't, I'd start with whatever you have, your reviews, any feedback notes you have, your resume, anything that's sort of written out that you can pull together over an extended period of time. Then go through it yourself, or more realistically with the help of ChatGPT, to figure out what are the key insights. What are you better at than most anyone else? What comes up consistently in your reviews? What's changed over time? Are there areas that you've strengthened as you've gotten more experience? And are there themes that you can pull from that really highlight your professional expertise? So this is another way to figure out your spark that you can then build a business around. So I really do believe that the spark is already inside you. But once you've identified it, that's only part of the challenge. The next part is putting it into action. This can take different forms, whether it's setting and realizing a goal for yourself to leave your full-time job and start a self-funded business, or maybe you're already doing consulting or coaching and want to take it to the next level in 2026. Or you have clients, but you want to put yourself out there as a thought leader through social media content and marketing. With any of these, typically the biggest barrier is having the confidence and the perspective to just do it. Hit publish, send that email, etc. It's a mental game more than anything else. And trust me, I get it. Part of doing this podcast is it's a way for me to learn and process my own experience out loud and in public, and hopefully help others who are facing a similar situation. For instance, I sat on the idea of this podcast for years. I've had the idea for self-funded for at least 3 years before I actually started this show. And definitely hitting publish on that first episode was nerve-wracking, but it's been really fulfilling so far. So while I'm far from perfect on taking action, I'm currently recording this 4 days before it's supposed to go live after I once had a several-week lead with batching content. I do want to share a couple tricks that have helped and continue to help me. My first trick is to systemize yourself into taking action. Create the process and automations that give you very little room to question yourself. For instance, if you are committed to publishing content on LinkedIn twice a week and you don't have a content pipeline, you don't have a content management system, and you don't have a content calendar, it's very easy to just not do it the day of. But if you batch your content and commit to a system, it's easier to commit to your end goal. You are much more likely to hit publish if you make it easy for yourself. Take the thinking out of it. The other trick I have is to lead with how you can help others. I truly believe that by leaning into your spark, your unique experience or expertise, you are adding value to your target customer audience. So if you frame it that way, by not taking action, you're actually taking away from that audience, not from yourself, but from that audience. And name that customer. Give yourself a real avatar and speak to that person. Think that everything you are doing is in service of that person. It makes it easier to do something for someone else rather than thinking of this as some sort of selfish or self-serving endeavor. And I believe that to be true. You have a valuable experience or expertise that can truly help others. And by putting this out there, you are providing a service to people. So how do you put this into action in 2026? We are now, as we're recording this and publishing it, in December of 2025. Most likely, you are struggling to kind of finish the year, get to the holidays, and get through it. But to the extent to which you have some time to reflect on, I want to give you just a couple exercises that can help as you think about gearing up for 2026. So if you're listening to this at the end of 2025 or whenever you are, I'd encourage you to think about what's one outcome or result you're looking to accomplish in the next year that you might feel stuck on. Maybe it is leaving that full-time job and getting your first client. Maybe you have a client and it's creating a broader brand or doing some sort of launch. First, figure out or further validate what is your spark. Use the new year as a moment to reflect on yourself and reach out to others for feedback. Send a simple note like, "Hi, given it's the new year, I'm looking to connect with a few trusted friends, advisors, whatever, to get feedback on what I'm uniquely qualified to do." Most people in your network would love to help. They just need to be activated. Secondly, commit to small change and build the process to do it. I love the concept of tiny habits by BJ Fogg. To use an exercise example, if you're a total couch potato and you want to run a marathon in 2026, you're not going to start by running 10 miles tomorrow. What you might start with is getting out the door and doing a walk-run mix around the block. And then every day, if that is the tiny habit that you are building, you will either meet or exceed that habit. You can always get up to that 10 miles and you will over time, but you don't start there only to disappoint yourself. You set something that is totally achievable and you create that chain of achieving it every single day. And once you build that muscle for action, it becomes a lot easier. Again, what you want to do is take your mind out of it. Don't give yourself the opportunity to say no to what you're trying to do. Just do it. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening. I hope you have a relaxing holiday season and take some time to plan for the year ahead. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to Self-Funded. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show wherever you're listening so you don't miss what's coming next. I'd also love for you to leave a review and share what you're most excited about on your own self-funded journey. And if you want to go deeper, check out my Substack. You'll find the link below. Until next time, keep carving your own path.